How many VAs do you have?
I just sacked.
We're about to sack one tomorrow.
Yeah,
you sacked your only one.
Yeah, we like, as I said, we needed to build all the processes.
Yeah, that's
so we were sitting there and we're like, I think the business we did last year, was 4x, 5x what we originally thought. So you can imagine a company that hasn't generated within the investment buyer agency space going from like one extreme to another. So the systems, the scripts, the team, we knew nothing.
Yeah.
Because Cohen Handler is very different to Cohen Handler Secure, how they operate. Like Cohen Handler is obviously a very premium service, which that's what we've kept, Cohen Handler Secure. But I guess Cohen Handler Secure is definitely more volume.
Yeah.
Looking at more properties and securing more properties and servicing more clients. So it's a very
different business. Because one's like Eastern Suburbs luxury property versus everyday investors.
Exactly. So it's very different, and it's as I said, it's very much volume based. So it's like, how can we keep the premium service while also delivering it to more people?
Yeah.
So then going from the extreme of like having nothing, just having a Cohen Handler base, to then doing a number that we just didn't think was achievable within a year. So now we sit back and we sat back at the end of last year. We all sat down like the executive team and we said, well, what do we want to do this year? And I'm like, well, I want to double what we did this last year.
Yeah. So you're going from double to double?
Well, not even. It was like quadruple.
Wow.
To then doubling it this year. Because obviously, like if you look at like a normal multiplier, what we did last year was just like, it's crazy. But it all comes down to the brand. Like the brand is everything.
Yeah.
So the brand delivered us that. Wow. So now it's all about, okay, now we really have to, I guess, expand our business through the service we offer and then reviews of what we did last year, while also saying, we have this amazing brand, which we do. So now like, that's why I've built this team to then redo all the scripts, redo all the systems, redo all the SOPs to support, first of all, a larger team. Because what we want to do, we need, let's say 5+ people.
Yeah. So you're working backwards. You're
working backwards. Yeah. So we went forwards and then we went backwards. Which is pretty typical. I think like a normal business progression is your first year, obviously tends to be your slowest.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. You're building it up. But then also you have enough time to adapt and change.
Yeah.
Where for a business like CH Secure, it was like 100%, like every week it was like hitting new goals. And first of all, it was just me for 6-7 months. So it was like, well, I don't have the time to work on SOPs, business structure.
I know exactly what you're saying, because that's what me and Reese have never done. Like, and then now like, shit.
Yeah, how do we do this? Yeah. And it's like, who do I chat to? Yeah. And you chat to like the exec team within Cohen Handler, which obviously they're amazing. They provide good advice, but Cohen Handler is very different to Cohen Handler Secure. Yeah. In how they operate. So like if you look at our competitors, they did 20 in their first year, then they did 55, and then they did 110, and then they did 200, and then they did 500. It's like that was a normal progression. And for us, like that's what we expected to obviously do in our first year. Yeah. Well, I think we expected to do more than them, what they did. Yeah. Because obviously the brand. Yeah. But then we ended up doing like 3x, 4x that. So we were just sitting back like, okay, this is amazing. And then I was kind of backtracking, thinking, well, I'm spending so much time in the business, which was great. In terms of like
working on the business.
Not working on the business, working in the
business.
That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Instead
I wasn't
of
spending. Exactly. So I was like customer support, sales, after sales experience, like all of that. Which obviously that's what you do as a business owner. So I expected that, but then I had to work back in terms of, okay, now I need to employ, which I got Elisa on board. She's amazing. So she's buyer agent, like business admin as well. Yeah. Bit of BDM stuff. And she was one of the best. Well, I don't think you can get a better first hire than her. And she was only at the time doing 3 days a week for like 5 hours a day. But that was like a godsend. And then we got Bryce, who's now an associate. And obviously with that type of stuff, it's like, it's so much time invested into building them up to get to a point where they're sufficient in what they do.
Yeah.
And now we've got to that point where I'd say 2-3 weeks ago, right? We got to that point where I think they're sufficient and they can run on their own. And I'm confident in the work they'll deliver for our clients, that I can like stand back and say, okay, what actually needs to be done for us to get to that amount? Because if I didn't take that step back, then we would be doing what we did last year. Yeah. Like, as simple as that.
Well, that's what we've just had to do. Like, just to like, now every weekend we just come in and just work on the business. Like, how can we change the process? What can we do better? And it all comes from our offshore staff, because they need like step by step by step
SOPs.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's so time intensive. I found the offshores, and everyone's different. Like, I have some mates that have extremely successful businesses within, like I'd say the e-commerce space, let's say, or like courses, selling a course, and they're so against bringing in people, like into an office space.
Wonder why?
I think it's HR first of all. Obviously, you're managing like. I think with people like external people, VAs, virtual assistants, it's very much contract work.
Yeah.
Where when you're bringing someone in, like obviously they have an employment agreement, they have, you know, certain liabilities and expectations, which, you know, as do we all. And some people just see that as just, first of all, too much risk and too much energy. Where I think looking at Cohen Handler and how that operates, it's like, it's a perfect environment for someone to build and grow. And I think if you have that distant team in terms of VAs here, VAs there, then I think it's harder to build that environment. Because I
think it's a mix though. Like if you mix it.
That's right. Like it has to be a mix. And I see some people that they will just have the VAs.
Yeah.
Which I think like it's great. But as I said, they're very much contract work.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've worked with people within the contract space in Australia as well. And that, like, I find some of them aren't as invested within the business.
Yeah.
Obviously, they want to deliver the work, but I'll say, like, let's use an example, like on an acquisition basis. So let's say you bring someone in to do acquisition work on a contract basis, right? They're presenting properties to you, and they're not up to scratch.
Yeah.
It's like. You're doing due diligence again. First of all, I'm having to do my job twice because I'm looking over their work again.
Exactly.
While I'm also paying them commission.
Yeah.
And then halfway through a deal, you say, you know, you could get your building and pest back and it looks horrendous. And then you've got your contractor saying, no, just go ahead with it because he's invested in his return. He wants his return, right? Yeah. And then we obviously want we want the best result for our client where he's not invested in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was like, that's the hardest thing and I found that's what happened last year because we did have a few contractors and just because we had so much business, so we couldn't employ enough people to be able to buy enough properties for our clients. So we just found I was doing so much work because we were just saying no to like heaps of business from these contractors. And then the contractors didn't want to work with us because like they weren't doing any deals. So it was tough. But then I also found that with virtual assistants as well, it was really hard to find a virtual assistant that actually wanted to invest in your business.
Yeah.
And I guess that, it does make it a lot harder.
Yeah, mate. We've had them for like 2 years now, and we've learned the hard way that you need the process, you need the vision, but we've gone through so many, and you can't hire these guys on their skill. No. You got to hire on their personality.
100%. I think it's much the same. I guess you could argue the same for someone in person.
Yeah.
Like anyone.
Yeah.
It's. I'd say I'm very much on feel. Everyone's different. Like I always had, like my last employer prior to this, he always said you have to feel like you can have a beer with them.
Yeah,
that's
right,
what he said.
okay.
Like, do you feel like you could go in and have a beer with them?
Yeah.
Which again, I don't know if I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Because I think then that's bringing in a as per friend basis, which also sometimes doesn't work. And I've seen it within real estate agencies where, you know, the associate gets on with the agent too well.
Yeah.
And then, they make heaps of wrongs and it's harder to sack them. So like I've seen, so I don't really agree with that, but I definitely think it's about feel and stomach and gut feeling. Like I've definitely I'd employ people over gut feeling more than experience. 100%.
Yeah. But it takes wrong decisions to come to that realization.
100%. I think we've definitely, there's been times, and I think that's the best thing about Cohen Handler is there's so many people that want to work for the brand. Because obviously we're one of the biggest within Australia, one of the most well known. Same as Cohen Handler Secure. Like I constantly get messages on LinkedIn, hey, keen to catch up. People reach out from like some of our biggest competitors. And there's constantly people applying. And I think like that it's good because it's helped like build up my experience around, first of all, what CH Secure needs to take it to that next level. And then also, I think like the biggest thing is like you can kind of see through the bullshit now.
Yeah.
Because I think that's always what
which
happens.
Which only comes with experience.
Exactly right. Like you, and I've seen it so many times now where like the resume is completely different to the person that's there.
Yeah.
And the experience. So yeah, it's very interesting.
There you go. And just going on to it, tell me exactly what CH Secure does.
So Cohen Handler Secure is an investment buyer agency. So help people purchase affordable investments Australia-wide between 200 to 700K. Our main focus is helping people build profitable portfolios. And I guess like, what does profitable mean? A lot of people have different goals. But ultimately just helping them take them to that next goal or achieve that next goal via investing in property. Like that's our main goal.
Amazing. And does it excite you what you do? What do you like? How does it make you feel to do what you do? Because it's very unique, exactly, and it's growing as well.
Yeah, it's it definitely like 100% excites me.
That was my phone. We'll edit that
out. Yeah, it 100% excites me. Like obviously that's why I come and do this every day, and I've worked in real estate my whole life. I started in commercial. I went to resi sales. Like always had the focus around investments. And then as soon as I stepped into the buyer agency space, I said 100% this is me. And at the time, it actually wasn't returning more from a salary or a commission perspective. It was more the feeling that you were seeing people achieve their end goal. That excited me to keep pursuing this career. And then obviously it's moved into a space where obviously it's rewarded more. And I think that just all comes down to passion, right?
Yeah.
So I'm actually passionate about, and the reason why I'm passionate is I love it. Like I absolutely do love it. So,
well, property is like a sport in Australia, isn't it?
100%. 100%. It's for me, like, well, I'd say for most Australians, it's the number one talked about thing. And I think that's why property investing is so popular. So I don't know what it is now, 2.5 million, 2.6 million Australians are property investors, which is a crazy statistic compared to obviously the overall population. And then also looking at median house prices, because you're looking at America's obviously median house price is a lot lower. So acquiring assets is a lot easier there, where Australia, that median price is so much higher. We also have a higher percentage of people that are investors. So it is such a talked about thing. And for me and my family, it was always like that at the dinner table, constantly talking about property.
So let's just reiterate that. Yeah. So your mum works in real estate, your sister works in real estate, or both your sisters, sorry. And so does your dad, who's come from a construction background. Tell me, like, what is the dinner tables like at home?
Oh, I'd say from the age of 13, 14, that's when I started to get was becoming highly invested within property. And I think all my friends, a lot of their families were quite invested in it, definitely ultra wealthy within that space. And then I started having conversations at the dinner table. Dad was obviously in construction. So it was just constant conversations around property. Even to the point where like my sisters would leave the dinner table at the time and just say, I'm sick of hearing it. Because it was a solid 5 years every single night. Because we were definitely that type of family that would all sit down, all five of us, and have dinner. But every single night, without a doubt, we're talking about property. Wow. Like in some aspect, being construction, being, what sold down the road, how a suburb's performing, like whatever it is, we were always talking about it. And I remember there was even a couple points my sisters said, I will never, ever work in real estate. And then I said back as a 16, 17-year-old saying, yeah, you definitely will. Because I was working commercial real estate at the time, which like I was doing school and commercial. So I was actually doing accredited at school.
Wow.
So I was working 3 days as a commercial property manager.
Well, that's a big decision.
Yeah. Well, like at the time, I think I was in year 11 and like my grades were great. I didn't really know what direction I was going to take after school. I had an interest in meteorology at the time. So like, I think that's where I was wanting to head. And then I ended up getting approached by an old boy from my school. And he was, I don't know, he would have been 55, 60 and he ran a commercial agency. And he said, well, do you want to come do this? And I'm like, well, I'm so passionate about real estate. I remember chatting to my parents at the time and they said, as long as it's not in residential, because I think they had this perception that residential real estate agents are kind of shady and it's a hard gig and, and not that they were saying that I wouldn't be able to do it. I think they just said, there's better out there for you and you're better than being a real estate agent.
I had the exact same experience with my parents. Yeah. All I wanted to do was real estate. Yeah, and they were like, no, like this is not your industry.
Yeah, 100%. So that was the thing. It was like, no, as long as it's not residential, it's fine, which was commercial. And that was easily the best experience I've had is commercial property management. That really started off my interest within the investment space. Because obviously a lot of it is just about return. Well, it's all about return because it's all investment. Like I guess there were some owner occupiers, but I'd say most of the stuff I was managing was investment. So yeah, that's kind of what started off my interest within the investment real estate space.
Amazing. And then it sort of led you down the path. So where do you go? You go commercial property management. What's the next step from there?
Yeah, so I went commercial and then I went residential. So I jumped over to resi and I was actually doing projects. It's funny because I was going through my LinkedIn. I'm trying to refine my LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm not that big on LinkedIn and I've been trying to refine it.
Not big yet.
Yeah, not big yet. But that's what I'm trying to make better. And I was going through all my positions and I was defining like what I did in each position. And I'm like, it's funny because each of those aspects really defines my role now. So I did commercial, which was obviously the investment space. Then I jumped
very
over,
data-driven numbers.
Very data-driven numbers, like obviously a lot of, like very much customer service driven, like helping both our client and also the tenant, which I think was a great experience. And then
and there would have been negotiations in there for like 100%. Tenancy terms.
Yeah, tenancy terms, like extensions, etc. Even helping out in some of the lease, like the sales and leasing space. Like I was pretty close with one of the agents there. Frank Georgie is director of a Ray White commercial in Canberra now. Yeah. And yeah, we had a close relationship. So I was jumping in and helping out. He always called me my his lucky charm. Because if I went to, like, I was an 18-year-old and I was so excited by this big thing and he'd take me to all these inspections, these massive industrial warehouses. But every inspection I went to, he'd get the deal done. I was trying to charm up the clients and whatnot as this 18-year-old. But yeah, that was my experience. I guess that's what it really made me so excited about the industry. And then jumped over to the residential project space. So this was looking at affordable apartments. So a lot of just like off the plan apartments. Yeah. And then that's what actually started off my own portfolio. So I think I would have been 21 at the time. And I'd say I was very much an overthinker. I was always an overthinker. I'd be thinking like, oh my God, I can't go do this because of this reason. And I got put into a situation where I had an amazing opportunity to buy this off the plan apartment. And end of the story, I ended up buying it. And I ended up generating, I don't know, 110 grand within a year. And I sold it prior to settlement. So I did a simultaneous. And I guess that what accelerated my portfolio as
Which is few and far between. That was, wow.
Yeah, so I think it was perfect timing for because I was in Canberra at the time. So I grew up in Canberra, but that was in Canberra. It was perfect timing for that market where construction costs were pre-COVID, so very low. And then obviously COVID started. I think COVID came in at the time and costs started to accelerate, but the building companies were locked in for 1-2 year contracts, so they couldn't adjust their construction prices. So we purchased all these amazing like off the plan properties, and they're like, oh my god, a lot of the builders went. That's why they went broke. A lot of them went broke because first of all, building costs went so high. It was so high per square meter that what they sold it for, they weren't even breaking even.
Wow.
So that's what I got caught in, but in a good way. But look, I don't think that market exists anymore for the off the plan side. I haven't done that since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of accelerated the affordable driven side. And then I jumped over to just resi sales. Because I was like, I'll try out that. It's the one thing my parents didn't want me to do, but I'm like, I'll do it. And that was great. I had a heavy experience within helping developers purchase off the plan high density blocks. So I guess that taught me quite heavily about due diligence, which is obviously a big thing within this current space.
Yeah.
So I was actually more of a buyer agent at that point. So what I'd do is I'd find these blocks, then would also try and get the sales on the back end of it.
Yeah.
So they'd go and build these townhouses or whatever it was.
So you were putting it together for the developers, going, bang, this is what you can do. These are the numbers that you can make out of it. And then I'm going to be the agent that sells it.
Yep. So that was the main focus, is like I did a few things that I'd say weren't as usual for agents at the time. Like I was investing as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old. I don't know. I was doing maybe $1,000 to $2,000 a week in Facebook ads. Sorry, not a week, $1,000 to $2,000 a month in Facebook ads.
Wow.
Plus someone managing it, which like at the time was so expensive for me as like a young guy. I wasn't like, I think I had maybe 3 or 4 sales under my belt at the time, but I was getting I would have been getting 30, 40 leads a month.
So you could at least see the results of it going, oh, here we go.
Yeah. But it wasn't as known because you'd walk down the street and I'd even get people, like I was out, as a young kid, I was out at like the pub on a Saturday, Sunday, and these randoms come up to me like, oh, you're that real estate agent I keep seeing on my Facebook. It's like, because no one was doing it. No one was doing the Facebook stuff at the time.
Yeah.
And then I also started, because Canberra operates a little bit differently where you don't have the CoreLogic data available, so you can't see who lives there. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I started...
well, ACT just locks them out.
Yeah. It's not a requirement to update CoreLogic.
Right.
And I started... So I'd obviously go scout the streets and find out where the high density blocks are.
Yeah.
And then you can go into the government website and you can purchase a land titles doc. So I'd go purchase like 20, 30 land titles docs. They're like $20 each. And I'd find who the person was and where they were living, and I'd send them a letter. I'd say, I've got a buyer for you, blah, blah, blah. And these people were shocked. They were shocked. They called me and like, oh my God. Like, it's
you have a development site, you're sending letters to them.
So I was finding who actually owned these sites. Because a lot of them were just investment owned, and they were living in Sydney or they were living in Melbourne. Like they've owned it for 25 years. Some of them, they were locals. So I'd go and just send them a letter. Like I wouldn't be intrusive and knock on their door. I'm not that type of person, but I'd send them a letter and say, hey, I've got your details through a land title search. I have a buyer really interested. And a lot of them were like, oh my God, like, they I guess appreciated the effort that I was putting in to try and get them a sale across the line, and I got a heap of sales across the line doing that.
Wow.
So yeah, I guess that was the due diligence side of things, and then I jumped over to the buyer agency space.
Just before you jumped over the buyer's agent, what made you jump? Like, why did you jump? Because that's like a niche in itself that goes, I can actually get a massive roll on from this.
Well, I think I stood back and I don't know if I'm going to offend some people here, but I think I stood back as a real estate agent and I said, I don't know how I can charge 2.5% for what I'm doing. And I think at the time it was such a heated market where you could have a dog standing at the door selling a house.
Yeah.
So I just didn't believe in it. I didn't believe in it enough that I could walk in and get charge the highest fee. Yeah. I think I was just undercutting. Like it was just, I don't know. I just wasn't passionate about it because I didn't believe in it.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to charge for something when you're like, I would do this for free. Like this is good.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think it was more like, I don't know. Yeah. First of all, obviously it's a very competitive market, which I think that's what I loved about it, is that it was so competitive. And a young guy coming up against 45, 50-year-olds that have been around 15, 20 years. Like I could tell many stories about that, but yeah, still, you still walk in and I don't know, you just be like, even putting down 2.5% on the paper, I was like,
yeah,
I don't know. It just doesn't seem right.
So I guess like in that scenario, your driver was actually the competition, not so much the money.
Well, obviously it was like, it's both. Like, I guess that's a benefit of real estate, but I'd say like I've always had a competitive nature from a young age, like very heavily sports focused, sports driven. So yeah, that excited me. Because
that excites me. I'm going, stuff these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
We know what we're doing. We've actually done the hard work and we're going to come and take whatever listing they potentially missed out on. It's ours now.
100%.
This is the new gen.
100%. So I think that was like a big driver. Obviously for that service, like the service, I feel like the service wasn't as big of a driver for me. Like obviously I delivered a good service, but I think the biggest thing that kept me in that space was, the competitive nature. And then, the money was great. Like obviously you still charge a decent commission. A lot of the properties I was targeting were quite expensive for Canberra at the time as well. So yeah, it was great. But then I think I stood back and, as I said, I realized that I can't keep doing this and I'm not going to be passionate about it. I'm going to lose passion eventually because I just don't have faith in what I'm delivering.
Yeah.
In terms of the service of a real estate agent. And I ended up having a chat to one of my mates who purchased a property in Townsville for $320K. And he's like, oh yeah, I just paid this buyer agent $18,000 to go find me this property. I was like, what? Where's the property? And he's like, oh, in Townsville. I'm like, Townsville? What, regional Queensland? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that's so random, but okay. So I ended up doing some research and I was like, it fits what I've done. Like it's like bundled into everything in terms of the investment space, the affordable stuff, the due diligence, etc. I'm like, it sounds like something I'd be passionate about.
It's like your perfect line. Perfect it's like, this is everything I've done and I can actually do this better than probably most people out there right now.
100%. And then I kind of stood back and said, well, I'm so passionate about like delivering properties to people. I think that's what drove me within the agent space in terms of finding those development blocks. I was so passionate about going and finding those opportunities. So when I ended up hearing that my mate, had this amazing service with this company, I ended up reaching out to them and I think there was like 150, 160 applications for this job. And I was down to it was down to me and another person. That's what I got to. It was like 5 or 6 interviews at the time. It was a company that he ended up engaging. And I ended up not getting the job. And as like a 21, 22-year-old, you're like, as a competitive guy, I was like, I kept trying though. I ended up reaching out to him again and I sent this amazing video. I'll show you after. It was the best video I've ever done. It was like a one-shot video.
We're gonna put it up. So
put it up.
Yeah, we'll put it in the video. So talk about it like everyone's seeing it.
Yeah. Oh, it's the best video. It was pretty much me saying like, oh, I funked up the interviews. Like this is what I wanted to talk about, and it was me like walking around my mate's penthouse apartment, and saying like I was doing random stuff. Like my mate handed me like a coffee and it had whiskey in it, and I thought it was coffee, and I drank it and I spat it out. Like it was like a cameo. It was so cool. It was really cool. and explained a little bit about me, like why I wanted the role, why I was so passionate. And I ended up getting a response back from this guy that runs a team of like 110, 120 people. This is a big company. Now valued at like over $1 billion. And he's like, ha 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 ha, let's chat next week. And we ended up catching up. He's like, look, I'm going to hire you for that role. We don't actually really need it, but I'm bringing you on. And it was the best thing. I was like, it was really good. And I enjoyed that team and I enjoyed that space.
Wow, that is some serious like out of the box thinking going, how am I going to get a job? Because like, there's so many applicants for this. Like, 100%. How do I make myself stand out?
Exactly.
I think a lot of people will put a resume, put a nice border, some colors. Mate, you've gone the next level here.
100%. I think you see like the people that go and drop off like weird stuff to get a job. And I'm like, nah, that's not me. So I ended up doing this video. It was really cool. So I ended up getting the role, obviously. And I was top performer there. The other person they ended up hiring was like a lot older than me, like obviously more experienced. So I could see who I was up against within that interview process. But yeah, I ended up coming on board. I think I was the youngest in the team by like 5 or 6 years. This is out of 110 people, 120 people. It was great. And then like I spent a bit of time there, but I got to a point where I just said, well, you know, my dad had the business, my mum had a business when she was younger. Like that's what I grew up around, and that's what I knew I wanted to do. Is I knew that that's the space I wanted to be in, the investment buyer agency space. I was so passionate about it. And then I just said I need to take that next step and step out of the comfort zone and do something that I was scared. I was actually scared about doing. As I said, I'm an overthinker.
Yeah.
And I stepped out of the comfort zone and just went for it. So
as in starting your own business.
Starting the own business.
Yeah.
So,
wow. So how long have you worked at this company before you actually went out on your own?
It actually wasn't a long time. It was about 12 months.
Wow.
And there was times throughout that period where I was like, I'm never going to start my own, because I was so happy being there and I ended up going on a trip away with a mate that had a business at the time. And it got to the end of it and I'm like, I feel like I was kind of sad that I didn't like, I felt like I was going to be locked into this space and if I spent too much time there, I'd never leave. So I said, if it's not now, then it'll be never. So that's when I stepped out and went and started.
Which is a big leap, because you're on good money at this company. You just said you're the top performer there, or one of the top performers. What does that feel like? Like, that's scary.
Yeah, no, it was really scary. As you said, like I was on a good gig. I think for any age, I was on a pretty decent gig there, and I'd be stepping out on nothing. Like I didn't pay myself really anything for I think a year and a half.
Wow.
Living in Sydney, you know, paying rent, paying living costs, car, everything.
Which is all new to you anyway, because you've come from Canberra.
New. Exactly. So
new network, like new cafes, new restaurants, like even that. Like, where's your new gym? Like, where do you go to? Like, what's your routine?
Yeah, it was hard. It was definitely hard. It was definitely hard at the time. And as you mentioned, like Sydney was new to me. I like to think of myself as an introverted person as well. I'm quite introverted. So when I moved to Sydney, first of all, I had no office with this new job. So I was working from home. I'd say I'd spend like 24 hours a day at home, apart from going to the gym and out to grab some like groceries and stuff. So
you're like, locked in, like, cause you don't even have your friend network here.
No, I was locked in, and look, I don't think it was a good headspace at the time, being completely honest. But then, I think as I got to the end of finishing up there, started creating more a better group in Sydney. And I guess that's kind of what accelerated me into Cohen Handler, funnily enough. So after I left that, started my own, it was, I don't even know if I can say it because I got issued a...
don't say it then.
No, I got issued... I started my own business, and then I got issued a cease and desist to that business. That's a whole nother story. So yeah, I started my own business, and obviously as a young guy, not knowing much about trademark laws, nothing, I started this company
We're gonna have to unpack this.
Well, it was called yeah. I started this company. It was obviously the investment buyer agency space.
Yeah.
And I was sitting down with my friends and trying to figure out a name, and we came up with this name. It was called Prosper, so Prosba. I'm like, perfect, Prosper buyer agent.
Love it.
I'm like, it's great. It works.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I launched this company and started doing heaps of like my own social media stuff. I was putting heaps of stuff out, and heaps of people were sharing it from Canberra. Obviously, my network in Canberra, my network in Sydney, and I was scrolling through my emails one day, and it was like a junk email. I was like, what is this? It was my only junk email because it was a new email. It was a new business. And I clicked on the junk email, and it said from a top trademark solicitor saying cease and desist for your name. And from a company that was a lot larger than me, I'll say that. A lot larger. Like a very, very large company.
What's you thinking? You see this. Do you think it's real, or is it like?
Well, I was like, this is fake. It was coming from my junk email. Well, what is this? And then I started looking into it, and then you start feeling your heart go woof, woof, woof. You're like, oh shit, this is serious. And then I just got into the point. Like, obviously, I did all the marketing myself, so I didn't pay anyone to build the brand. So I'm like, all right, well, what's it going to cost me? Change your name, change your marketing, whatnot. Fine.
Is that where that ends? Like as soon as you stop, like there's nothing.
A cease and desist ultimately just says like cease or trade with this name.
Yeah.
That's it. Like cease it, move on. So I ended up doing that, and obviously like that's what their job is as a trademark solicitor as well. It's a trademark lawyer. I reckon they knew about me 4 months before I started doing it, because obviously you establish the business, you get all your marketing ready, etc.
Yeah,
I reckon they knew about me because they'd be doing all that stuff, that research, because that's what they get paid for. They get paid to find people that are going to potentially hinder on their trademark that they're protecting. So, they knew about me for a while, obviously, and then I launched it, and then that went down. But then at the time,
how quickly did you get that letter from launching?
I think it was within like a month. So I think they started trying to figure out who I was.
But you've done 4 months of prep, 1 month launch, bang, letter comes in. Yeah,
which like the company that issued the cease and desist was in no way related to like my business. I think there's a chance that I could have potentially fought it.
Yeah.
But again, it would have probably cost me 40, 50 grand to do so. So obviously didn't have the money to do that, nor is my brand worth that much as theirs, that I'd be able to go, fight them in court. This massive multi nearly $1 billion company at the time.
Wow.
So, but yeah, it
$1 billion company going after the little guys.
I know. I was like, what do you mean? What is this? But
well, maybe they saw potential in you. I
don't know. Well, again, I reckon it's the trademark solicitor. That's how they make their money. Yeah. Like, that's what it is. So anyway, at the time, my mate someone ended up reaching out to me saying, hey, Simone Cohen seen your stuff, and he's keen to catch up and chat. And I was like, what? Which again, my heart's beating like, oh my God.
To those who don't know Simone Cohen, can you introduce Simon?
Yeah, so Simon's probably, definitely one of the most well-known buyer agencies within Australia. And he's built up the presence of buyer agency with like what a buyer agent is and what a buyer agent does.
He's the model.
He's the model of that space. Cohen Handler's been around for 15, 16 years. He established it when he was young as well, 24, 25, coming out of the real estate space. So yeah, he's the one that kind of put it on the map for Australia.
Which 15 years ago, no chance anyone's heard of a buyer's agent.
No. Well, he was saying he's got heaps of podcasts as well where people were saying, well, what's a buyer? What are you, an art dealer? Like people didn't know. Like, what are you doing? Dealing art? Like, what is this? Are you going to help me buy some art? Because obviously they were trying to crack into a space of multi-millionaires, billionaires. So when they hear buyer agent, they think, oh, this guy's going to help me buy some art. You know what I mean?
Did he start in eastern suburbs of Sydney? Yeah.
Yeah, he started at Ray White Double Bay. It seems like a lot of people start at Ray White Double Bay.
There you go.
But he started there, and then he ended up meeting his business partner at the time in LA. And obviously America has a massive buyer agency space. So obviously real estate agents serve both obviously now it's different. There's the law changed over there, but they used to serve both buyer agent and real estate agent. Wow. So that one person would get commission on both sides.
So okay, I can see where that can come unstuck.
Yeah, so obviously that model over there worked, and they came back and launched Cohen Handler. And obviously it was a hard gig for them for many, many years. But now one of the most well-known buyer agency brands in Australia, one of the largest in terms of like a nationwide reach. So we have multiple offices interstate in nearly most states. And Simon's also part of Lux Listings, which is very popular TV series within the property space in Australia. So
when am I going to see you on there?
Me and our little 500k property. Yeah, we always joke that like there will be an off-brand, like it'll be like an Aldi version of Lux Listings, and it'll be, you know, me and our team shopping around these more affordable areas. But how big is Aldi? So like it's like, I know exactly.
You can say, well, okay, well yes, you're buying a $30 million house now, but I'm going to build someone a $30 million portfolio.
Exactly. Well, I think like as you said, how big is Aldi, right? Like let's say Aldi compared to like Aeron, that
I don't know Aeron.
The premium, it's like a premium supermarket brand in America that like it's like $40 strawberries and stuff. I think it's a good analogy because there's millions and millions of Aldis, and it's much the same as if you look at Australia, how many properties are actually under 700k?
Yeah.
The percentage is like 65-70%, which is crazy for people. I
didn't know that.
Yeah. Crazy for people to actually hear that statistic. So when you think of that, then there are multiple markets out there that are targetable, that are obviously going to grow, build up your wealth over time. So then, maybe it can get you into a position where you can buy those top, 1%, 2% properties that Simon helps people buy.
Which are still, but like these properties are affordable, and everyday Australians can lease these properties, pay these properties, grow a family in these properties.
100%. Like it's obviously these properties are all occupied. That's 65-70% figure. I don't know the exact figure. I don't want to quote it exactly, but I know it was around that mark. But that they're all occupied, and most of them are within growth-driven locations. And that's obviously another thing to talk about in terms of our criteria around that. But I guess everyone starts somewhere, and I think that's why it's good having the Cohen Handler brand there and Simon there, and also me here as well, because like I'm at the stage where I'm building up my portfolio where I can definitely not purchase what Simon's looking at and purchasing daily, right? But Simon's at that point where he's been there, he's done that, he's purchased those properties, he's built up his portfolio. Now he's purchasing himself, his dream owner occupiers in these amazing eastern suburbs locations, but also he sees it from his clients. So he sees his billionaire clients where they started from those affordable properties, once a time ago. So I guess it's kind of connecting those dots in a way. And that's how like our brand works, is it is a full circle moment where, as I said, our main focus is discussing what the client's goals are, what they want to achieve. And let's say for some people, it's building a portfolio that's going to bring them 200,000 in cash, in cash flow, right? But for some, it's, I want to go purchase my owner occupier in Sydney, in Melbourne, wherever it might be.
Well, that's a common one I hear. Like, is how am I going to get into that house? Because there's no way like you can just go straight into a house if, unless you've got some serious money behind you. Like in your, I want to get into as well how you started the business, but this is just sort of where we're leading now. I mean, how does someone actually get into a house in the eastern suburbs through growing a portfolio first?
Yeah, so like it is one of the most common thing we're seeing now. Obviously, people struggling to get in these central CBD locations. Let's use Sydney and Melbourne as an example, right? They sit there, they're on the market, they're looking in the market for 6, 12 months, 16 months, whatever, however long it is. And we see it so commonly within the Cohen Handler office. They're getting priced out. The market's growing too quickly. So a lot of people will just say, well, we'll get to a point now where they say, well, we just want to get into the market. The best thing about our process is these investments are affordable. You're not going to have any issues getting into these markets because, first of all, we look in multiple markets. So they're all heated markets. But if we have that nationwide reach, we can get you into something a lot quicker than you waiting 12 months, 16 months to get into the eastern suburbs. That property will then grow by on average right now, 14 to 15% per annum. So if you take all that into consideration, you're going to get into that eastern suburbs property a lot quicker than you waiting in that market, waiting for your wages to grow, waiting for your sales bucket to slowly increase over time through you putting, money aside every week, where you can go and invest that in a property that, first of all, is obviously going to grow a lot quicker than your money sitting in the bank and your salary growing. And it's going to put you in a better position in 3, 4, 5 years' time to go get an even better place than what you were originally looking for. So that's what we're seeing a lot of now.
Creating opportunity. So opportunity to go, I might own 2 or 3 of these properties now over 3, 4, 5, 6 year period.
Yep.
Sell them, trade into something you like, or you might need to sell one or potentially draw some equity out.
Exactly. I think that's what a lot of people realize. They say, well, first of all, purchasing property is addictive. And we see that with so many clients. Like some clients that were stuck purchasing their first now own 3 or 4. And they're just like, how? And first of all, it's having the right team, definitely. Comes down to having the right broker. Like I'd say that's probably one of the most important parts, having the right broker. So I've seen so many people get stuck, not having the right broker, not having the right accountant, not having the right advice, having the right buyer agent, obviously putting you in the right spot that's going to bring in that growth. Because we have heaps of people that just redraw equity out of their investments and then go purchase another asset. And it all comes down to their goal. Like some people don't want the big property, the big portfolio. So it all comes down to their goal. Like some of our clients just want to generate, this is my goal over the next 5 years. I want 400K in equity. That most likely will only require one property. Where some clients are like, I want to live Northern Beaches and, I want the life. So I want to live 5 minutes away from the beach so I can, walk my kids down there every day. That's obviously a separate goal where it obviously require more capital. So yes, it does require a slightly more aggressive portfolio. So again, we can adapt and change depending on what your goals are. Like, as I said, you don't need the big property portfolio. You can do it with just one. And I think that's shocking to some people, because when you can say you can generate 400K in equity in a lot of these properties over 5 years' time, people just don't believe it. They're like, oh, I need 6 properties to do that. It's like, no. We have clients, first of all, that have done that within 2 years. I think conservative rate's 5 years. And they did it with one property.
Tell me the formula. Like, what are you doing to find these properties? Because a lot of people say like, how do you do this? Why don't you, why, like, what's stopping you from doing it? Explain it to me.
Look, I guess the criteria for us is quite detailed. But simplifying it, we really just focus on lifestyle, affordability, and employment-driven locations. So that's obviously on an LGA level, like a state level, right? So obviously on a property level, there's further due diligence, but I talk it on like an LGA level. So lifestyle, affordability, and employment. So lifestyle, obviously what's going to attract people to move to that location. Affordability is also obviously really important. I think lifestyle, affordability work hand in hand. If you look at obviously cost of living now, how much does it cost for us to live in the eastern suburbs of Sydney?
Too much.
Compared to, Western Australia, Perth, right? So now that I think that's what people are taking into consideration is, hey, first of all, I can't afford to live in these cities anymore. Where else can I move that I can experience the same lifestyle for a more affordable price? Obviously, Newcastle, Wollongong used to be those places for people from Sydney. Now they're too expensive. So people are looking North Queensland. Adelaide's extremely affordable. Perth, obviously, that's why that market grew so quickly in such a short period of time. So that's what we look for is lifestyle, and that looks at obviously beaches, like beach style lifestyle is very important for a lot of Australians, but then also coffee shops, restaurants, yoga studios, gyms, even looking at we even look for within the lifestyle side, like shops within shopping precincts. Like an example is, we saw Mecca Maxima recently open up in one of the shopping precincts in a more regional location of Perth, right? Which is all signs that the area is growing and adapting to the population and the more affluent residents. So that's a good sign that market's growing. And then obviously employment's another massive factor. So we want to make sure that it's secure within the employment side. There's a diverse range of different industries, obviously unemployment rate's low, etc. So that's obviously another very important part. And within each of those things, I reckon we purchase between 50 to 20 different points of data to support each of those different factors. A lot of it comes down to demographics. So the demographics of a location in terms of median wages, education scores, like there's multiple different things that we look at within that space. And then lifestyle, which is more about infrastructure, affordability is another good one, like wages compared to house prices, etc. So there's multiple different metrics that we look at to then dictate where we're going to start looking.
And then what about like, okay, so I see you're obviously tracking areas, all this data-driven approach. What about the other side of it? Do you also sort of talk through when to sell and what metrics are you looking at for that?
Yeah, it's important. As I said, obviously we look at it from a portfolio view. So depending on their goal will then dictate when do they exit. But like, yeah, some markets, it's at a point where they need to exit either way, which we keep track of. So every 6 and 12 months, we provide a valuation to our clients, letting them know, first of all, how the growth within that property is tracking. Second of all, then we get the opinion from agents within the area around a CMA, so how the market's performing. And then we look at our data in terms of if we think it's an exit or an entry market. So we provide that advice every 6 and 12 months to our clients, which just allows our clients to maximize their
potential.
Yeah, well, to maximize their position. I had a client, as an example, yesterday call me up. We purchased a property for him exactly 12 months ago in Mackay in North Queensland for, I think, $480,000. He had a call from one of the agents that we work with saying he had a buyer at $670,000.
Oh, wow.
So my client said, hey, Josh, like I'm not getting any young. He's actually a young bloke. He's like, I'm not getting any young. He's got 3 kids. He's a brickie. And
he's a hard worker.
He's a hard worker. And he said, I want to travel around Australia with the missus, with the kids. He said, I can get 670 for this. Like, what are your thoughts? And obviously we went straight into it, had a look at how the market's performing. And I said, look, I see this market growing. I think from a short-term perspective, I don't think it will be much more than where it currently is at. So my advice is, look, if that's your goal, if you want to go travel around Australia, offload it. He's owned it for more than 12 months now, 50% capital gains. No worries. Like, do it. I have heaps of clients have done it. I've done it myself. So that's the decision. He hasn't made it yet, but he's definitely thinking about taking that direction. And I think it just shows how much flexibility. Well, as much flexibility as you can possibly have with property, because a lot of people, don't think it's as liquid as what it is. But within a lot of these areas, you can sell assets within a week. Like that, as I said, that he was reached out to by someone. So, and he's nearly generated 200K in growth.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, so happy, because it's like he can call up and say, I want to go travel around Australia. Like, how cool is that? It's like, well, property can let you do that. I don't know. It's a crazy thought to think, this family just created, nearly 200 grand in growth, and they're going to go sell that, and they're going to go buy a caravan and travel around Australia. It's just, I don't know. It's very wholesome and fulfilling to see that and to feel that. So
just introduce him to a good broker, get an equity cash out, and do the same thing and hold the property. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what he saw. He's like, he's in a good position, and yeah, obviously he can do that, but he's like, I want to reduce my wage to under 18 grand, so I'm not paying tax. And it's like, all right, well, just offload it, come back, buy an investment property then and there, or he's looking at offloading it and just getting into another cheaper investment now.
Yeah.
So then by the time he gets back, then that asset will probably be at the same position as what this current one is. So like, there's all those advice, that stuff that we provide in the background to help them, make sure we can maximize their position, but also make sure they're comfortable as well.
Amazing. And just to circle back, because we sort of skimmed over it before, so we sort of ended at when Simone Cohen approached your mate. I want to know the story.
Oh yeah, so Simon approached my mate. He saw my stuff around. He must have followed a few mutual friends, and we ended up catching up anyway. So Simon reached out and said, let's catch up. And the conversation was actually nothing to do with the investment buyer space. It was more to do with starting a buyer agency in Canberra. So that's what it was all about.
Right, okay.
So it was the original conversation is he knew I was from Canberra. And he said, would you be interested in starting?
I'm connecting the dots right now. I think you'll explain the next move after this.
Yeah. So he explained, he said that. And then I took some thought because I was like, I can move back to Canberra. Obviously, I moved out of Canberra for a reason. I love Canberra, but I moved out for a reason. It was for myself to grow and to meet new people. So I made the decision not to. And then when Simon and I think maybe it was the second or third meeting, we're sitting down kind of explaining what I was doing in my current business. And he's like, interesting. We don't really do that at Cohen Handler now. He's like, I'd be interested to explore that option as well. Because obviously their entry point within a lot of their markets is 800K, which is like the top end of our range.
Yeah.
So after explaining that a large percentage of the Australian market's actually under that amount, he said, well, let's open up this premium service to to Australians that can afford to enter the market at some point.
Which if you're working, this is your entry level. This is your start.
This is your starting level. Like you can't get any lower than this ultimately.
Yeah.
Like as an example, we purchased something for 220K.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago. So you can't get any lower than that. That's a freestanding asset. So yeah, it's just opening up a premium service to everyone. And we always get the feedback around like when we jump onto, let's say we're calling agents within these areas and they say, Cohen Handler, secure, what do you, Cohen Handler, don't you purchase stuff over like around 4 or 5 million in the eastern suburbs of Sydney? So that's the feedback we constantly get, but that's how we develop such good relationships with these guys. And it's much the same with our clients as well. Like they're excited to be working with a brand that can not only help them purchase their first investment under 700K, but I can also help them purchase their dream place in practically any location in Australia. So I think that's why it works. And that's why Simon wanted to bring this style business into the Cohen Handler family.
The one-stop shop.
Like it's literally just a one-stop shop for the whole brand. You know, he started Cohen Freeman, which is like a styling company. It's a like / building. They do a lot of project management stuff. And then you've got Costi Cohen, which is a commercial division. Then obviously you got Cohen Handler. You got Cohen Farquharson, which is a property management division, so helping you manage your investments. Then Cohen Handler Secure. So there's a few different brands out there, but they all service the buyer, and everyone's kind of kept in the family. So as I said, we have clients that want to achieve cash flow in the future. They get serviced by Costi Cohen in the commercial side, and then we have clients that want to purchase their dream place. There's always someone at Cohen Handler that are willing to help out. And we've had people go through that cycle before where they've purchased investments with us, built up their position, then purchased their dream place in their dream location. Like an example was one of our clients purchased a few investments with us, was actually bringing in cash flow from those assets, plus also built up a large amount of equity. Then they were given the ability to purchase something in the inner west, an apartment in the inner west. Like that's what they wanted from the get-go, but they weren't in a position to do that. So now we're starting to see that flow-on effect of keeping everyone within the family.
Yeah.
And obviously, they always get a better deal on the back end of it as well. As I said, we want to try and keep everyone within the Cohen family.
And that like dedication to the clients, like how important is it to look after a client, like and why is it important for you, and what is the benefit for the clients?
Well, obviously there's multiple aspects. Obviously for us, we want a returning client. So if we're not delivering a premium service, then they're not going to come back and purchase with us again. I guess looking at it from a client side in terms of picking the right buyer agent, so many different factors. First of all, obviously you want to be making sure that you're going to be purchasing a property for the right price. So a good negotiator. Second of all, you want to be making sure that they're going to be a partner for life. There's nothing worse than having to chop and change buyer agents it'd be much the same as what, like, I don't know, chopping and changing insurance providers, like brokers. It's just a headache. It's like find the right person from the get-go, build a good relationship, and then
get it right from the start.
Yeah. And obviously that's why, when I have people come on sales calls with me and they're like, well, we've got to go and investigate. We're going to chat to a few other people. Great. Go do that, because it's such an important decision. I wouldn't expect anything less. And I'd be doing the same if I was in their position. So I think, it's very important to find that right person. But when you do, like as we can see with our clients, some of them have purchased 5, 6, 7 assets with us. You end up building a very successful portfolio. So it's definitely very important to pick the right buyer agent. And for us, it's very important for us to service that client so that, first of all, we can get them to their end goal as quickly as possible. But we also have a returning client, which is obviously definitely more beneficial for us.
And that's pretty unique because generally other buyers agents out there aren't doing post-care at all.
No, exactly. And I think that's a big thing that helps us keep clients returning. Is a lot of other buyer agents out there just say, we'll purchase the property and that's it. Goodbye. See you later. Where for us, and I think it's kind of hard for the client to comprehend. They're like, well, what do you mean? You pay your final fee at the end. That's it. And it's like, well, no. Obviously, that's it. That's the end of our service as per the agreement. But we want to keep providing our service beyond that, as that will allow you to get to your goals a lot quicker, and also help us get you returning quicker as well, obviously depending on their goals. So the aftercare service is definitely something that differentiates ourselves from other competitors, and it's all included within our fee. So we don't charge it as like an ongoing annual fee, which a lot of other companies will do. But we even got to a point where obviously we're catching up with like our executive team, and it's a full-time role, this aftercare service. So we're nearly having to employ someone solely to just do aftercare. So that should show a lot of our clients how invested we are in them, to help them get to their end goal.
Amazing. And tell me, your relationships with agents in the areas that you're buying, how important is it for you to maintain relationships?
Well, obviously as a buyer agent, extremely important, because we're always at the forefront for off-market opportunities. So we purchase a very large percentage off market, around 70%. If we're not building those relationships with agents and maintaining those relationships, then we're just not at the forefront to have off markets presented to us. Obviously, the benefit of having the off markets for our clients is a lot of them are great value, and then you question why they're off market, and a lot of them are distressed sales that they're needing to sell quite quickly. Might not be presentable, might need some cosmetic work, some top level cosmetic work.
Especially like I know in the areas around Sydney, you'll get an agent that will do the renovations for you. But in some of these pockets you're buying in, you got to do it all yourself. So it's another barrier to go, why, I've got to do this, put it on the market. I've got to organize this and this and this. And if you come in and make it easy for them, they don't need to pay the marketing.
Exactly. Well, I think like the difference between the eastern suburbs and the areas we're looking in is people might have the cash to then invest in doing up their properties. A lot of the areas we purchase in, it's a different demographic, first of all. And a lot of the distressed sales could be related to financial position as well. Like they can't afford to hold on to it. So at the end of the day, they just got to offload it quickly to whoever's going to pay the right price, and normally the right price is under market. So then we just grab these investments, present it to our clients, put together a bit of a plan of how we're going to get them to that next level, in terms of maybe doing some very top level project management. A lot of it's just cosmetic work only. So
you organize that post,
We organize that. It might be like pre-settlement. So we try and get a lot of it done pre-settlement, so there's no vacant period.
And you're negotiating that before you buy it.
Yeah. So we're negotiating like pre-access prior to settlement. Get the trades in, do the quotes. We get multiple quotes. Make sure we're getting the right person in for the best price. We have heaps of examples on the go at the moment. We've got one in WA, very cheap purchase. I think we got it for 50, 60 grand under market. Needs some top level kitchen work. So we got our kitchen guy to go in there. We're repainting the whole exterior. It's a pink, like it's a weird pinky color.
Hey, I'm a pink man. I'll tell you.
Some people are, but yeah, getting that all repainted, doing all that. So we helped organize all of that, and a lot of it was done prior to settlement. So we have heaps of examples of that.
I don't think I've really ever heard of that. Getting stuff done prior to settlement.
Yeah, obviously from an investment perspective, it's lucrative because then it just means that there's just not as long vacant period between settlement and getting the property leased out. So we just want to minimize that as much as possible because, again, a lot of our clients are at an entry level point as well. Like they can't afford to hold on to a loan for a month, 2 months. So they might be able to afford it, but obviously we don't want to push them into that position of having to do that. So we just try and minimize that vacancy period as much as possible. And
like numbers are massive. I mean, like how much does it actually cost to own these sorts of properties, or what's the out of pocket costs today?
It's a great question, and it's definitely a lot higher now because of where the interest rate environment. I'd say, for something around the 500 to 600K price point, on average, it might be maybe $150 out of pocket a week.
Wow. Because I do the numbers with our clients as well. I go, okay, well, this is what it would cost you, and this is the rent you add back. How does that feel to you? $150 a week.
Well, I think like in your position, and maybe the assets you look at, because I know you have a major focus within Sydney, it's, maybe it is a tough conversation with some clients.
Mine are more like, I'll do 100% lens with the family guarantor product. That's generally how a lot of our stuff is, or first home buyers buy. They're saving their deposit, they're putting their deposit in their offset account, so they've got a massive buffer.
To be able to fund
it. But it does cost them $300, $400, $500 a week. And they're scrimping. They're at their absolute maximum 100%. Borrowing capacity just to get here. And realistically, a lot of them, like 4 years ago, they were buying in Maroubra, Broome Street, Maroubra. They're looking at you now going, I can't afford the East. Exactly. Where's my next best?
Well, you don't want to be living off tuna crackers for 3 years. I tell you, I definitely never wanted to do that. And I think like it's a good point that you just made it regarding Maroubra, and like it was something that I wanted to touch on as well, more around the stuff we look at. But you look at Maroubra. Maroubra is an area that's heavily gentrified, right? Over time, like very quickly. And I think you live in Maroubra, you live and breathe it. Obviously more premium part of Maroubra, but I'm saying like if you were looking 10, 15 years ago, Maroubra was a very high percentage of public housing, didn't have the best demographics at the time. But it had the lifestyle, and that goes down to that lifestyle, affordability, employment factors, and that's why Maroubra's become so popular now. I think even when I moved to Sydney, Maroubra was still quite affordable, the back end of Maroubra at least. But now it's at a point where it's extremely unaffordable, and it's all through that gentrification process. Like affluent residents move there, invest there, renovate these properties. Now the streets look amazing, the properties look amazing, and then it's also follow-on effect with the house prices. So
tell me, there's heaps of construction in Maroubra. When you're driving down a street and you see left, right, builders there, builders here, like what does that mean to you?
As I said, gentrification. Like the area's heavily gentrifying. We're seeing affluent residents move and invest there. So let's say, I'd say Maroubra is a lot of people upgrading from apartment living to then get into the house market.
And there might have been, like, to get into that market, they might have traded up 3 or 4 times just to get there.
Exactly right. Well, I like if we use the example, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, where it was obviously a lot more affordable, I think a lot of people were moving there for the lifestyle and the affordability. Obviously, they were the 2 biggest drivers. Then, like, they had still affluent residents, so they still had the income. They might have had the cash on hand to be able to start doing renos. Then as you see that increase, obviously then the streets become quite attractive, right? You drive down a Maroubra street. Oh, new property there. Oh, look at that property. Looks amazing. Like people want to live there.
And it goes from sale to new property.
Exactly right. Yeah. So, but yeah, it creates that attraction to that suburb. Then you also see lifestyle improve. Because obviously when there's not much investment within the properties itself, there's normally not much investment within the infrastructure side. So when the residents start to improve, the wages start to increase, then normally it's a follow-on effect with supermarkets, coffee shops, restaurants, because obviously there's an attraction to those particular things. And that's what we look at. Like when you see an area that has the coffee shops and the yoga studios and the gyms and the Pilates, whatever it might be.
What's Reese has said this to me before. What is it? The acai effect? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So the acai effect, it's like saying, it all comes down to gentrification. So like when it has these amenities there, it's a sign that there's a more affluent resident within the area. Because you have to think, like acai, yoga studio effect, whatever you want to call it. We used to like, it's even, some people call it the Guzman Gomez effect when you see a Guzman Gomez open up, because it's like, who eats at Guzman Gomez? Who goes to yoga every day? And it's a lot of it is your affluent resident. So it might be a slightly higher wage, slightly different job criteria, etc. So,
and is that like a red flag when you start to see that? Is that more of a market that you more than likely want to exit out of, or do you hold that? Like, how does that play an impact?
Well, there's multiple different stages to it. There's obviously early, mid, and late stages of it. First of all, it really depends on multiple different things: population growth within the area, size of the city itself. Like there's so many different moving factors. For us, we target the very early stages of that, because that's where you tend to see the largest amount of average growth. And I think if you look at Maroubra, I think Maroubra was probably in that middle stage where it saw that massive increase, right? But once it reaches a point past that, the affordable section, I think for Maroubra's extreme example that I don't really like using because it's in the eastern suburbs, and eastern suburbs very exclusive and there's not a lot of properties, etc. So I think Maroubra is probably a different example, but I think if you use it for other areas, yes, there is a slowing. Yeah. There's always a slowing.
But definitely there'd be a slowing on growth. Like we're not getting 15, 16%, some of the stuff that you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly right. Like it's just on a different level. Yeah. And then you will see a slowing of growth, but then comparing it to the house prices, obviously it's still growing by a substantial amount, but it won't be as substantial as to what it was when it was affordable. And I think the biggest thing is, and the reason why we look for affordable is then like how large is the bracket of buyers that can look at this particular property, right? So obviously when it's affordable and it fits within, the median wage criteria, median borrowing capacity criteria, looking at cost of living, etc., like people can actually juggle and hold on to these assets, then 100% of the property, the people in the market that are actively looking will be able to purchase that asset. But obviously when you're reaching that later stage of the gentrification process, you're looking at like 10%, 5 to 10% of the market. Smaller market. And they have a very tough criteria, a lot of those people. Like that it needs to tick a lot of boxes, where when you're looking at the more affordable market, the criteria is normally very low. Yeah. Like it might require being close to a certain school for, in school zones and stuff like that. But apart from that, the criteria normally is a lot lower than, a lot lower than that top end of the market. And I think that's what you see with people like Simon and the premium market in our office is you look at some of these briefs and the criteria is like this. So it needs to be, this, and it needs to be, 5-minute walk to this, and it needs to be, it needs
very long list.
Yeah, a very long list ultimately. So yeah, I think it's for us making sure it's accessible to people that are within that market is important, because then it just it really maximizes the growth. And that's why we do see 15, like some of the properties that are in that early stages are experiencing 45-50% growth over a 12-month period.
Wow, 45 to 50% growth Yeah, you're definitely not going to see that in the eastern suburbs.
No, well, you have to buy a freaking good deal for that. Yeah. But for us, like
maybe Simon can sort of something.
But yeah, that property was just through growth. Like they didn't touch it. Yeah, they didn't do any investments, because normally you hear 45% growth. Oh yeah, well, do they do a bathroom and a kitchen reno and one? Well, no, it was none of that. It was just through market. So
and based on the data, this is why this area is the area you need to be in.
Exactly. Like it all just comes down to the data. And as I said, obviously for us, We look at it at that state level, at that LGA level, and then obviously to protect our clients, we look at it from a property level. So this is more to do with condition, and that comes down to our process. Like we have people that go through the property, do condition reports. We have building inspectors that go through the property, then check the structural condition of the asset. So by the time that we're in that due diligence period, the client is in the full know of the condition of that asset, being structural and cosmetic. So by the end of that process, and we know what needs to be done to get it to a stage to rent it out and just reduce that risk for our clients.
It's like for someone that doesn't know what they're doing in property, like you are generally like an insurance premium. That's what you are.
100%. But even for people that do know what they're doing and don't have the time, because I think that's two things, right? There's one side that don't really have the experience, and then there's one side that are just time poor. So I think that's why the buyer agency space is so popular now, is you're either in one of those categories.
Yeah.
Is you don't have enough time or you don't really know what you're doing.
But you're also, as like let's say you're a mum and dad investor, you're dealing with like real estate agents that do this every single day, been negotiating the last 20 years. Like 100%. They will make you overpay for a property, especially if you don't know that area.
100%. 100%. It's, yeah, like obviously, as anyone would say, never trust a real estate agent. I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna ruin a lot of feelings in this podcast. I tell you, I'm hating on real estate agents a lot for someone that works with them every day. So
and just said how important relationships are.
No. Look, I think but
that's a credit to them as well. No, because they're working for the vendor.
Exactly right. So at the end of the day, you have to think, if you're a vendor, you want the agent that's going to be working to get the best price for you. Simple as that. But if you're a buyer, you also want a buyer agent to be able to get the best price for you. So I think when you look at it like that, then I think this is moving into a space where nearly everyone will be using a buyer agent.
Yeah.
That's how popular it will become, because as Simon was saying, as any buyer agent would say, it's the entry point to the property is the most important, not the exit. The entry is. And I agree with that in every sense, because we have competitors that we compete with on properties that pay an extra 30, 40 grand over market. And they don't have the negotiation experience. Obviously, they have the data and whatnot. Everyone, like a lot of people can have the data, but they don't have the negotiation experience. And that client, for them, in 12 months' time, is going to have a 40 grand position less to what they should have realistically. Yeah. So
just with putting pressure, or even just like negotiating terms, like, and just making it, okay, well, I know this vendor needs this, this, and this. I'm going to make this offer so desirable that they take that 30,000 off because they're getting exactly what they want in other terms.
Exactly right. Yeah. So, and as I said, that just comes down to like having the right expert there with you. So as I said, if you're selling a property, you want to have the best agent, much the same as buying it as well, that are going to work in your interest. So at the end of the day, the agent works to their client's best interest, and we work for our clients. So we're going to try and get you the best deal possible. And also, I think, the biggest thing within the buying space is figuring out the motivation, as you mentioned. So once you figure out motivation, then normally the negotiation side is a lot easier. And I think a lot of people overlook that. And it's the one thing that we focus on heavily, even with staff. Like one of the biggest teachings is find out why they want to sell before you start negotiating.
And what are some of the questions you're asking to understand that?
Well, like some agents are normally pretty open about it. So you can blatantly just ask, well, why are they selling? I think for me, it's digging into like who they are. So I say, who are the current vendors? And they might say, they're a family. So what are they upgrading? Are they trying to upsize? Yeah, they're actually trying to upsize. Oh, interesting. Or digging into that, like with a lot of our off-market stuff, we see a lot of divorces, like sadly enough in this current space.
Agents love divorces.
I know. It's like a funeral as well. They always appear out of somewhere. But it's asking, who lives here? And normally it is saying that it will come up. There'll be something along the lines of, actually, it's a divorce. And then for us, we're like, okay, distress sale, which tends to be a quick deal and a good deal for our clients. So that, I guess that's a very important part of the buyer agency space.
Because there's always a reason why someone's selling.
100%. There's always a reason. And like the motivation will then dictate what the price is. Because you do have like, and this is the other thing is like the tech these days, it's so easy for real estate agents to get in touch with owners. Like, I think I used a great example of me. Like you can pay $20, you can find out who the owner is. In New South Wales, you don't have to pay anything. Like a lot of it's up to date, right?
Yeah.
So agents are constantly reaching out to people that don't even want to sell, but they're promising a higher price, right? They're the ones that you're finding on market. And that's why a lot of buyers are sitting there for 12, 15, 16 months because that agent reached out to this owner cold reached out and said, hey, I might have a buyer for this at this price, right?
It's always, I've got the buyer.
It's always a conversation. And that's what's happening. It's not just happening in the East. Like Eastern suburbs is definitely the most common, right? Because it's so competitive from an agency space. But it's starting to happen in the areas we're looking, in the more affordable areas where the agent's reaching out and saying, hey, the market's moving quick. We can get this price. And it's the owner doesn't even really want to sell, but they're like, well, if they can get that price.
And they go, oh, it's worth, 2-1. And they're saying I'm going to get 2-3 for it.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Hello, I'll go to Josh. I go, yeah, I'm going to sell this. And can you invest in 6 properties for me?
Exactly. That's the thing. And I think like then the motivation is more pricing.
Yeah.
Which is something as a buyer agent is very hard to deal with. Because I think in the current market, we're finding a lot of people are happy to pay it as well. So the real estate agent's not as much in the wrong. But if they are price motivated, then...
Especially in COVID, like the fear of missing out was there, which, I mean, what are your thoughts? Like with rates coming down, like is that fear going to come back into the market of missing out? Like where do you see it going?
I think it's still there.
Yeah.
To be honest. And I think the media do a really, really, really good job in portraying like where that market's going to head, where the market's going to head. So at the end of the day, I think the fear is still there and I can feel it still. And even with the clients we're talking to, it's like, it's a ticking bomb. It's like, it's ticking. Like interest rates are going to come down. It's going to be more buyers in the market, which like at the end of the day, and you would know this, how many rate decreases is needed for actually to really open up your borrowing capacity to a point where, it will allow you to look at more assets. And I think with the one rate cut, it hasn't provided a dramatic increase in people's borrowing capacities that it's heavily influenced the market. I think a lot of the market's been influenced by like pressure buying in terms of saying, well, if I don't get in now, I won't be able to get in within the next 2-3 years because rates going to keep cutting. I agree that it will be at a point, hopefully end of this year, start of next year, where it will open up people's borrowing capacities quite substantially. But I don't think it's as quick as what people are thinking. And also, like, you have to think RBA is taking all this stuff into consideration as well. So if they know that the rate cuts is obviously going to influence the market, they're not going to do it as quickly as what we think it is. And that's why there wasn't a rate cut previously, because they can see that the market's still performing extremely well. Even with them pushing them to the position they are at now, they're still performing extremely well.
We're at 12-year highs and the market is continuing to grow.
Exactly. So I think, I was surprised that they cut the rates when they did, to be honest. I thought it was going to be a lot later just because of how hard the market is performing.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be I don't think there'd be many this year, to be honest. Because it's like, as I said, it will get to a point where we'll start opening up people's borrowing capacities quite substantially.
Yeah.
And it will then further activate that market. Because like even looking at the data we're looking at, a lot of the areas where we're purchasing in, a lot of people have migrated there. And we've seen the rental market activate as well. So we're seeing the rental prices increase quite drastically. And we're seeing a lot of that being increased by interstate migration, right? The reason why this is potentially a worry for a lot of these places that are quite affordable is a lot of that market are waiting to then purchase, right?
Yeah.
So we have to think, well, what are those people are waiting for? And a lot of a lot of consumer sentiment is tied around interest rates. So when interest rates do get cut, a lot of that rental population will start to look within that market. And a lot of those people would have spent 1, 2, 3 years in that market at that point, a new area that they don't want to purchase, they're not confident in purchasing in yet. So by the time it gets to that point, then it is going to be a heavily activated market.
Yeah.
So
just when, yeah.
Well, exactly. As I said, like you have to think for these areas, 2, 3 rate cuts at this point, 2, 3, 4 rate cuts, I think will be at a point where we'll open up people's borrowing capacities quite heavily.
And the properties that we mentioned before that cost you $150 a week, a percent drop really gets that pretty close to being positively geared.
100%. And I think that's why, I guess when you look at it like that, yeah, maybe getting in now is definitely better. But at the end of the day, and I had this conversation with the client yesterday, he said, well, if I come back to you in 5 years' time, are there going to be similar markets? And of course there is. Like there's always going to be markets out there that are going to be at that early stages of the gentrification model.
Yeah.
There might be a different price, but you have to think, well, wage increases by then, like it'll be proportionate to then prices, you'd hope.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, there's always markets out there that we're looking in that are going to be experiencing that substantial growth.
Amazing. And tell me, to wrap it up, what's next for CH Secure? What's on the horizon? Where do you see it all going?
What's next? Well, for us, we have massive goals. We're definitely going to be the biggest investment buyer agency within Australia. That was the first conversation we had with Simon when we started talking about this model. We said we're going to be the biggest and we're going to be the best. So now we're just building the systems to support that. So we've had an amazing first year. We've started building the team where we have a few job roles out at the moment that we're interviewing for. Then we're building the systems in the background. We're looking at building out a community. So all of this stuff is ultimately going to bring us or push us into that space of being the biggest and the best.
I think systems are key to continue growing. 100%. How important is it getting it right?
Oh, look, I know, like, look, I'd say a year and a half ago, I would have said systems aren't important. I'd say brand is important, which brand is definitely up there. But now looking at it, systems is number 2. If you don't have the systems, it leads to, things being missed, which then leads to a bad review.
No quality control,
etc. So for us now, we can step back because we have the team supporting us and say, well, hey, what do we need to do to get us to that next level? And we bring a lot of it down to like after we purchase for our clients, we have like an end of purchase review with them where we sit down and say, well, what did you enjoy? What didn't you enjoy?
Always optimizing.
It's always optimizing and figuring out how can we do better. And I'd say easily 80%, 90% of the stuff that we optimize is through suggestions from our clients. And that's first of all how invested they are in us, in being their long-term partner, but also how invested we are in them because we care about their opinion. So through that kind of stuff, that's how we are going to be the best because we listen to who we're servicing.
And that is a goal. So like if you have a goal to be the best, like, what do we have to do? How do we understand this? Tell me, are you looking at like, obviously we say the word like competitors, but what about like overseas? Like obviously this market of buyers agents is big in the US. Are you looking at the top guys over there and seeing what they're doing?
Yeah, well, like obviously it's very different markets everywhere we do look. I think for us, the biggest issue that we're going to come to see, and we do see it daily as well, is how can we deliver a premium service to an industry that hasn't really seen it. And I think the biggest thing within the investment buyer agency space, especially with our competitors, is they focus so much on volume. So I'd say what we're trying to build is a lot different to what everyone else is building. We want to. You're
like a serious service-based business.
We're serious service-based, and that's what Cohen Handler is known for. So we want to be able to deliver the most premium service we can, while also helping people build a successful portfolio, which, as I said, requires a lot of manpower for us. It costs us a lot to do that. So like with other competitors, you know, you're constantly chatting to multiple different teams at different service points. So you're chatting to a sales team, then you're chatting to an acquisition team, then you're chatting to client management.
And that feels very salesy.
100%. Well, it's like, well, you guys are just volume based, where for us, it's very much one person for whole process.
Yeah.
So that just allows the client to be in the know that, okay, when I'm at active search, I call Josh. When he presents a property, I call Josh. When I have an issue with settlement, I call Josh. When I have an issue past settlement, or if I want to know something about the property, I call Josh. Where with other competitors, and I've worked with other competitors before, it's, I don't know who to call. Like, I have an issue. I've dealt with like 5 people from your team. I don't know who I'm dealing with right now. I'd say that's one of the biggest issues that we see. So when we're on a call with clients, first of all, obviously the brand is a big selling point. Second of all, the premium service, which comes down to, as I said, the one buyer agent for the whole process, is another big one. And then the after service is another big one as well. So they're probably our 3 biggest like differentiating factors, and the biggest goal for us to keep that in play for the years and years to come. If we can do that, then we'll definitely be the biggest and the best. But I think putting a lot of emphasis on best. So like, again, being quality. Big is good, but quality is better. And if we don't have the quality, we won't be the biggest and we won't be the best. So it's, you know, it's one of those things, but it's, I think now we've really taken a step back and made sure that, first of all, we can support a very driven team, and making sure that we can support a very premium service for our clients.
Amazing. Josh, mate, you've just smashed it out of the park. You know your stuff inside out. Josh Meli, CH Secure. Mate, reach out to him. He knows what he's talking about. Heaps of our clients have used Josh and the team. Mate, you get it done, and it's a straightforward approach. So, mate, you are the man. I love all the data, and mate, I could talk to you for the next 6 hours straight. So, mate, let's wrap it up. How can people get in touch with you to start working with you to start their property journey?
Yeah, very simple and easy. Reach out through the website, send an inquiry through, and we'll reach out very quickly. That's a service we deliver as quickly as possible. So yeah, through the website, and we'll be in touch.
Love it. Josh, thanks for coming on, and thanks for listening, everyone, to Pack Chat. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.